Good evening. Welcome to another virtual view from the East Stand. We had such rave reviews last week, and by rave reviews, I mean one friend of mine saying brilliant. And not
I think we had 66 views on YouTube.
did we? 66.
I mean, this lockdown calls for desperate measures, so
No, that could have been Zach on his device.
that's quite possibly it was, yeah.
But yes, thanks for hello everyone. Good evening. We're now halfway into lockdown, almost, but about 3 hours away from halfway. If it finishes in 4 weeks' time, we are the View from the East End collectively. My name's Smithers. I've also got Jono, who's distinguished by the word Jono on the corner of the screen, and the mighty Bengals jersey. I've got Moorsy, who today is supported by the LA Rams. Sponsored by the LA Rams, and Eddie, who's sponsored by the City of Miami.
Hey guys, Smithers.
Even better, yeah, very good. Thanks. Are we all okay? All surviving lockdown?
Loving it.
Eddie's loving it.
Yeah.
Eddie doesn't really like to socialise with people at the best times, so this is him living the dream.
Yeah, he's been ignoring people for years. He doesn't need 4 weeks excuse to do it.
Right. Saves me driving across the city to meet up with you guys. I can meet you whenever I feel like it.
At least you're not driving from Tara to Wellington for a Zoom call.
No, that's right.
Anyway, services. Thanks for joining us again. I put a call out on Saturday, maybe Friday evening. I think I'd had a few, and we were like, you know what? Let's see what other people want to talk about or want to listen to us talking about. Thank you so much. We had lots of some really good comments, questions, things like that. So I've had a look through with them. And believe it or not, we're going to start with something that wasn't even amongst those comments. It's basically breaking news in the past few hours, couple of days. So the NRL, as we know, are like every major sport, pretty much in lockdown. They're not the only one who's cash strapped, but they're in serious danger if they don't get something going. So they've been looking at all kinds of possibilities in terms of how can we start the season up again, what can we do, how can we find the safest place on earth. So hot off the press, tomorrow, allegedly, the ARL Commission will make a call tomorrow on whether they can restart the NRL potentially as soon as the 21st of May. Preceded by some sort of lockdown. I might let Eddie explain that in a minute. Wow. Maybe it's brilliant, maybe it's delusional. I don't know. I genuinely don't know because I'm not surprised by anything the NRL do anymore. But what do you guys think? Eddie, maybe you just talk us through the process and what you think about it.
Well, allegedly, Fox Sport was saying that they'll take all the teams, all the players, and put them into, or the way I read it, effectively solitary confinement for 14 days. And then they'll be either before or after that tested for COVID-19. And all those that make it through solitary then be able to rejoin their teams and start training in one big happy NRL bubble. Well, split into two conferences, I believe.
Yeah.
Half at Penrith and half at Homebush.
And it sounds like they were going to have I think it was going to be 13 rounds, so everyone would play each other once.
Was it 13 or 15?
15, I think.
Oh, it would have to be 15 if people have played each other twice. Yeah, 15 rounds playing. So how would that work in the conferences? Would you play each other in the conferences then switch over? I mean, are they trying to keep them isolated? Or?
Yeah, I'm not really sure. They didn't really elaborate on that too much, I don't think. They just said it's going to be a 15-round comp. So
I think they're just looking at all different.
Oh, wow.
Oh, that is great news.
That is unfortunate.
Sorry,
I mean, there he is.
That is awesome.
Moorsy, brilliant or delusional from the NRL?
What, the fact that we can't hear Jono?
Yeah, that's brilliant. That is brilliant. Unlike the NRL, I don't know, it's Australia. I haven't really followed what's been going on in Australia the last few days because they're a bit batshit crazy, I'd say, over there at the moment. But look, it generates headlines. It keeps them in the news. It's, I guess, showing the stakeholders they are doing all they can to get the games up and running again. I guess I was pretty excited. I'm missing the sport quite a lot. I
Yeah.
know it's not as important as to what's actually going on, but I'm still missing it. So if they got it up and running on the 21st of May or the 28th of May, I think those are the 2 dates that they've said. That would be pretty cool. I think. I think it's going to be. They're also saying that the Sydney-based players could return home as well during the periods. I feel there was something around that, but I mean, the likes of the Warriors, they're also talking about the governments allowing, I don't know, charter flights and stuff like that, so they wouldn't have to stay in Australia. I think it's all a bit fuzzy at the moment, I think. But so, answer your question, somewhat both, probably brilliant and delusional at the same time, I suspect.
Jono, are you back with us? No, he's not. Outstanding. This is even better. Yeah, I'm with you, Moorsy. I don't know. Like, nothing the NRL does surprises me anymore. It really doesn't. And I know I said before, I'd rather they just kind of shut up shop and thought about how they could to the future. But you know what? They're looking at possibilities. They're obviously desperate to get it going again. At least they're trying. At least they're trying to be innovative. At least they're trying to say, you know, how can we get some of this broadcast money?
Absolutely.
And if they could get it going, I can't see many other sports following them yet. So they'd have a captive audience. Everyone would turn into league fans overnight.
And that's right. And look, by the time we get to the 21st of May, this thing is moving like still pretty quickly and rapidly. I think, you know, by then people need an escape still from all of this shit that's going on at the moment. So I don't know if they can make it work and it's safe for all the people involved, then yeah. Why not?
Okay. Jono's back online.
So I think I think that I think they're trying to be as innovative as possible. And to your point, I think was it whoever it was, is that they keep themselves in the media. And aside from the UFC, I haven't read of any other sport coming forward with how they're going to restart their campaign. So you know, it might be batshit crazy, as you point out. Well, sorry, it might be all up in the air, but it keeps everybody in the news. And if they could make it work, I mean, they can sell those rights possibly to the States and to different markets that they might not have sold before. So kind of that first mover advantage, I think we get. And I mean, Peter V'landys is pretty, you know, he's pretty ballsy.
Sorry, just my COVID cough kicking in. Then, Dana White's apparently trying to buy himself a private island.
Yes.
There is talk that Major League Baseball will do all teams in Arizona as well, apparently.
Oh, is that right? Okay.
Restart the season. Jono, you should have paid for the broadband over dial-up.
There he is.
There he is.
Very well.
It's not working today. Okay. So on the topic of the NRL, so we go to a question. So Charlie Rass, friend of the show, Charlie.
Hello, Jono.
So Charlie asked, what do we think the future of the game is going to be like? And I kind of took that. He said, talk about the future of the game, how heads need to roll at NRL HQ. I might perhaps elaborate on that a little bit in terms of, let's say we get through this year in whatever fashion. Do you think the 2021 season is going to look any different to how the 2020 season has begun? Or how it began before lockdown?
It depends on how long this lasts and how long it is till they get back, because there's no way they'll it really is showing that it's not a sustainable business model. The selling caps are, even though the players want more and more, the NRL needs to change what it's doing, because the amount of money they're getting from the TV rights deals is actually not, it seems like a lot of money, but it's not sustainable because they've only shut down, they're only shut down for a short time. Admittedly, no one expects to shut down, but they're all talking about the clubs falling over. So how can it be sustainable? Throughout, that thought is across businesses, sports all over the world now.
Yeah, I agree, Eddie. I think I'm not sure this will happen, but I'm sort of hopeful that it becomes a somewhat simpler product again. The bunker costs how much? And I'm not a fan, but I just wonder whether things like that extra, that sort of money that's being spent on something like that might need to be spent on something different, and in fact they need to have that money for a whole different operating model or whatever. So I'm sort of hoping that we'll go back to a bit more of a simpler game, maybe one referee. Why do we need the two referees? And we start to look again at the stuff that happens on the field to get the crowds back in. Also the stadium kind of stuff as well, like the amount of money that was going to be spent on the new, the rebuilds and all of that stuff. I wonder if, again, we'll go back to a bit more of a basic, back to the suburban grounds. I'm not 100% sure that will happen, but I'd love to see that. And I'm not one of the, well, maybe I am, but hopefully I'm not one of these guys that say, oh, in the good old days, it was way better because of blah, blah, blah. But I don't know, just going back to something that's a bit simpler, less kind of commercial. They've got to make money, of course, but if they go back to something that's a bit, I guess, cost effective, that can't be a bad thing. And I think Eddie's right, the players' salaries and things like that, everything's going to get corrected potentially, I think, for 2021.
Yeah, Jono, we were just talking about what do we think the beginning of 2021 might look like, considering what's happening here, and I think Moorsy hit the nail on the head. I think there will be a lot of people in industries around the world, not just sport, just kind of self-checking in terms of, that job your boss told you couldn't do from home. Guess what? I can do it from home. There's a lot of things that people didn't think that we could do that actually we can do. Or a lot of things that, you need to make it fancy for it to work. No, you don't. I just need a chair in my kitchen and a keyboard. I can make it work. Anything from you, Jono, on that?
I just think there'd be less money floating around for sports in general, basically. Like, there'd be less revenues coming in as businesses cut costs, and there'll be less, less probably people going to the grounds, less sponsorships and stuff like that. So I just think there just won't be as much money in the kitty more broadly. So they're going to have to, as you pointed out, more you're going to cut costs. And where else do you cut your costs aside from your operations? But then you're going to have to look into your player salaries as well, I would imagine. So I just think you'd have a leaner, simpler version, to your point, when we hit the beginning of next year.
And I think expansion is out the window, I would say.
Very much.
Yeah, definitely.
I still think there's a few clubs at risk, whether we get this back online by the end of May or not. I think there's a few clubs at risk. So talking of clubs, let's talk about the Warriors for the minute. And I'm not kind of gazing downwards wistfully. I'm looking at my book to some of these questions that I've written down. So there were some good questions that came through. Let's talk about players and let's talk about the next few years. So Nathan Hibbert put a question on. He said, how would we build this roster over the next 2 to 3 years in order to win the competition? And there was also the guy with the incredible name, Wilson Joshua Williams. So player recruitment. Do we need more hard-nosed Aussies? Has Peter O'Sullivan lost his mojo? So do we think we're going to change our recruitment and sort of roster makeup in the next 2 to 3 years? Do you think we need to if the game's going to change? What would you do in the next 2 to 3 years to actually turn us into a potentially competition-winning team? I'm going to come to you, Moorsy. You're looking pensive.
Yeah, it's not an easy question. Do I think so? A few questions there, but do I think O'Sullivan's lost his mojo? I think someone put it on there actually. Did he ever have it? It was a sort of cheeky response to that. Look, I think what's been quite cool is watching some of the old games that are being up on Sky Sports, and actually just looking back at some of the old teams that we kind of had. And so we have to, personal view, concentrate on the pack. We've got to sort out the pack in the next 2 to 3 years. That is what then gives us the go forward to play exciting rugby league. So that is what I would do. Would I go for hard-nosed Aussies? Yeah, do you know what? I might go for 1, 2, just to come over here. They need to be someone who's still got 2 or 3 or 4 years left in the tank. That would be the challenge there. But it's attracting them over as well. If there's not enough money, if there's not much more money in the game, and the Warriors we've never really been totally flush with cash, as it were, and we struggle to get players over the Tasman. That's not going to change either, and I'm not sure the COVID pandemic is going to help with that. So it's going to be tough. I think the Warriors have got a real tough 2 or 3 years. So if you can't do that, then we've got to look at the local talent, and we've got to look at what's going on in the Auckland League and across the country, and just go there. But we've got to get big bodies. Just got to get big bodies. That's all. That's probably my take on it.
Eddie, do you agree? John Frederick put a comment on. He talked about, he was looking, I think he was watching the 1 versus 8. He said, the halves weren't great, but the forwards were great. Why don't we go back to that success of having, average halves, but it all being up front?
We do have average halves. We do have everything up front.
Yeah, with average halves.
Halfway there.
Which I think is a bit of, because he must have been talking about the game where we would have been playing Maloney and Johnson, I'm guessing, in the halves.
No, Witt and...
was it Grant Ravelli?
Yeah.
Oh, way back when. Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Couldn't get much more average than Witt and Ravelli.
Yeah.
I think that's always been the way that you win rugby league games. It's a simple game. Go forward, and then your back line looks great. And
So,
we kind of haven't figured that out yet.
But yet we're pushing the envelope on this small ball stuff. We can't be so naive to say that rugby league isn't going to change in terms of the structure of the players, the makeup of the game. We might talk about union a little bit later. Union's changed incredibly in terms of what those players actually look like and how they work. Has it always been pack the front and it will work? And is that always what's going to bring success? Pack the forwards?
We need forwards that aren't as dumb as two rocks, but big forwards that go forward are gonna get you over the advantage line, and that's where small ball doesn't get you there.
Okay.
Jono. Probably to answer the question a little bit more, as Peter O'Sullivan lost it in our recruitment strategy, I think ultimately we've been talking about this for ages. We do need a bigger pack, and I think the Warriors realise they need bigger forwards, and it's not as though they haven't been trying to go out and haven't been talked about with some of these forwards. The big issue we've got is we don't have a value proposition. So to answer the question, what would I do if I was looking to change the makeup of that team over the next period of time? I've got to figure out what my value proposition is, and at the moment our value proposition with the same coach, we've got a team that's gone backwards. We don't have star power in the team aside from Roger Tuivasa-Sheck. So I would be wanting to change something that then gives us something a little bit different. So you either have to change a coach, change a CEO or something, and then start to provide a reason why people want to come over here, or otherwise you've got to go with the strategy that they're probably going a little bit more now, is plucking 2 or 3 players from obscurity, or bringing them in through the under-18s kind of pathway that they're talking about, and hope in 2 to 3 years' time some of them come to fruition. So you've got to go one of those ways. You can't continue doing what we're doing at the moment, in my opinion, because you've got no value proposition for people to come here. What's in it for them?
It would be certainly interesting to see to figure out why the likes of Steve Price and Kevin Campion through our history have come to Auckland and try and bottle that. But I just wonder whether someone like Price and Campion, they're just like, oh well, I'm gonna give it a crack. There seems to be less people that just want to come here and play for the Warriors. Those guys, like when we were at our best, when we had a Steve Price and a Ruben Wiki, one outstanding Aussie prop and obviously one of an all-time New Zealand Kiwi props as well. So,
yeah. I mean, Wilson also asked the question. He asked the questions, what are the measures that we need to take to attract players? He said, what are measures that we need to take to attract grassroots players? There's 2 things there. I think the first question, which you guys have been trying to answer, is we don't have a value proposition. You know what the biggest persuader to get people here would be? If we were winning. And I don't know how we get there. It's almost a bit of a chicken and egg. You can't win without great players. You can't attract great players unless you're winning. But yeah, Eddie, you make a smart point around, what is it that got Steve Price here? What was it that got some of those players here? And how was it that we could do that at a time, arguably, when money wasn't the be all and end all, that it seems to be now? It seems money's always the first thing on the table. So can you actually compete with that? In terms of what can you do to attract grassroots players? Well, to be honest, I don't think we have all that much competition in New Zealand. So if we're talking about local players, domestic players who want to come and play top level league, correct me if I'm wrong, but short of us and a few kind of teams on the way, we are the only team in the NRL, and that's, I don't think that's going to change anytime soon. New Zealand team, excuse me. So I think we've got a bit of a captive audience in terms of that. I think the challenge that we have is not how do we attract really good young league players. It's how do we persuade really good young league players to stay in league and not go looking at other codes, may it union or otherwise.
I think though we do struggle. We are struggling in New Zealand. Like, the Storm, they come and pick them at 17. We aren't the only ones trying to attract players here. If you had a choice between college, and just out of school contract, or even schoolboys, to go to the Storm or play for the Warriors, you'd really have to think about it, wouldn't you? If you.
Yeah, no, fair point. I hadn't actually thought of that. Yeah.
There was a kid. His mum used to go to our gym, and he ended up I think he might have been 16. Ended up at the Storm I don't know how he's gone after that, but yeah, he went to the Storm, got plucked out of school.
Yeah, these guys are getting hunted at 14, 15, 16 in all these tournaments. So, and I think going forward, we'll probably get our share of those as things sort of calm down a bit. Going back to what you're saying about Price and Wiki came over at the same time as, I reckon in those days they would have had at least a razzle dazzle. I forget who was sort of where the coaching was there, but the style of play and what the Warriors were known for at that point in time, maybe. And in those days, you'd kind of like you could be the guy that leads us to crowning glory kind of thing. And that's what brought Roger Tuivasa-Sheck here, like basically Cameron George or whoever it was talking to him going, mate, you're going to be the guy that's going to lead us to our first premiership. Sold him the dream on all of that. And now I'm unsure what their next value proposition or what their next dream they're selling to people is to come over here. Because that's what you're saying. The money, if they come for the money, then that's not the top player you want. The money will follow the reason why they want to be over here.
I've got a few more Warriors-based questions. We talked about Steve Price there briefly. We talked about Roger Tuivasa-Sheck. Jeremy Gargett asked a question around essentially saying, how would you compare captain versus captain? Is RTS a good captain? If so, why? If not, why not? And I might add another one into that. If you could have any current captain in the NRL, who would you want? Eddie. Is RTS a good captain? Yes or no?
I think from the fact that he leads from the front, as a captain in that respect. Me personally, I like the Stephen Price captain. Throw even more so probably than Mannering. Price really threw the team on his back, and that's the thing about having a prop in front of your captain. He can literally throw it on your back, and he goes how he goes. Roger can toil as hard as he likes, but his shoulders aren't big enough to take the whole team on his back. From fullback, he can't do it. So, he does it, but he, not to the same degree that a forward can.
Jono, you've been watching the Warriors longer than most of us, or Eddie excluded. Who are you? How do you rate RTS in terms of Warriors captains?
Oh, he's very good. Eddie's point's right. He's a guy that leads from the front and leads by actions, much like a Mannering did. And obviously to a large degree that Steve Price did. I just think the one thing that he misses a little bit is the ability to influence games via the referee. And I always worry about a fullback being captain because they're not kind of right in the middle of the game, if that makes sense. And so I think people will follow him to wherever, and he'll lead by actions. But if you're going to contrast that to who would I like to have a captain, Cameron Smith, because he can manipulate a game either by what he does just from smarts from on the field, or just the way that he manipulates a referee throughout the game, just in there and Tui Vasashek, and I think Mannering didn't have this either.
No,
Just
you're right.
haven't understood the art of doing that. Like I see Tui Vasashek can get better at it, but he's just not a master manipulator like Cameron Smith.
Moorsy.
Oh, I'm so disappointed in you again, Jono.
Here's the setup, Jono. Moorsy with the touch. Here we go.
Oh yeah, let's get Cameron. Let's get Cameron as the captain. In terms of RTS, the boys are right. Lead from the front, and I think the younger players look up to him. He has won a premiership. He's done what he's done, and he seems to be a great role model for the younger players. He works hard, he trains hard, doesn't really put a foot wrong in that regard. So I think in terms of the clubhouse, I think he is a good captain. But as the boys say, from fullback, it's not impossible really to really have such a huge influence on the game. And you've got to be. I prefer to see forwards as captain. I'd love prop, but failing that in the halves, or in that sort of hooker halves kind of area, because you're in the game, you're right where the refs are making the decisions, as John is kind of saying there. So you kind of talk to them immediately in the impacts of whatever's going on. So yeah, but I couldn't stomach having Cameron Smith as captain. Jono?
You'd be more about having Cherry Evans as a captain.
That would be a very close second.
No, Paul Gallant, surely.
Yeah. Well, let's chuck Robbie Farah in there, shall we? I mean, let's just chuck them all in there. Amazing leaders.
We could go for the West Tiger leadership group. Gallant, Smith, Cherry Evans, and Farah.
Awesome times.
That'd be pretty good. I agree with you guys. I mean, I think RTS to me lacks that. I don't want to use the manipulation word, but he lacks the ability to influence. Let's put it that way. And whether it's because he's geographically where he is on the pitch, by the time he's run up to shout at the referee, already playing again. It's too far away. You look at, Moorsy and I grew up watching football. Your captains are normally your centre half or your centre midfield, pretty much.
Yep.
It became a bit of a striker's role later in the.
Don't like it though. Don't like it.
No, it's got to be someone in the middle, and I'm the same. I don't think, as much as I think Roger is a good leader and a good role model for players, kids, everything. I don't think he's a great captain, and he's just not effective. Simon Mannering, I didn't think wasn't effective. Too quiet.
Who was our last
enough
influential great captain at the Warriors? Just a question. I don't know. I don't know.
Steve Price.
Price.
Yeah.
But just to your point, Smithers, Roger Tuivasa-Sheck is the best that we've got in the club by miles, in my opinion.
I agree with that, Jono. Yeah.
I don't want to sort of feel like we're putting him down on it because we're not. It's just, and I think they realise that that's what he needs, and he realises he needs to work on those, continue to work on those, how he manages the referee and that. But it's just not something that I don't feel it's something that comes natural to him.
Well, it's funny. Someone put on, I think it was Pedro, Eddie, put online, said, what about Tohu Harris? Is he the next? I mean, is Roger the best that we've got? I
reckon he is. I think RTS is the best we've got. We've got it's still a youngish team. I don't see Blake Green. You could argue. I'm not too sure. He's not long term. It's not long term, so he'll be out of here after this season, I presume. Not sure what his contract is, but I think RTS is definitely the best we've got because of the way he leads from the front.
Okay. All right. There's a question of out of contract players. I just want to dive back a bit more currently. So we had go back to the Warriors. So we all got an email this week, and there was a piece on social media, essentially from the Warriors, from these emails that have been signed by Cameron, Steve Kerning, Roger, and Mark Robinson, I think. And they've been communicating a little bit, and they communicated this week about memberships. There started to be some questions asked across the NRL around memberships and what would we do. Stuart Rees-Baird asked a question around memberships and what do we think the future of memberships are. Number one, I think it's great that the club came out and said, basically paraphrased, don't ask us about memberships yet because we don't have the answer. I don't think they really needed to. I don't feel I needed to be communicated to because I know that the season's still up in the air. I think at the point at which we know the season is either going ahead or not, that's the point at which they need to come out and explain what's happening with your $200 or $300 or $400, whatever you've given me. So maybe go around the houses in terms of, what do you think about, firstly, how do you think the club are communicating at the minute, and what do you think the future of memberships might look like? Maybe Jono, how do you think the club are communicating at the minute? Crisis communications.
Well, I feel like I want to defer to Eddie first, because Eddie and I had a sort of 4-metre discussion about this the other day when I bypassed his house as Zach and I going for a walk, and he may have a different point to you on that. So I've got to actually defer to Eddie first before I give.
Go on, Eddie.
Oh no, I think our conversation was based on the article by Paul Lewis, which was a commentary piece. I think I sent that on our thread around what the Warriors were going to do and saying, are they going to defer the membership? Are they, that'll just create another hole for revenue coming the following season. It kind of said that maybe it's the terms and conditions, that the opportunity for refunds is gone, blah, blah, blah. It was on the New Zealand Herald on Sunday. I think maybe that this piece was maybe in reaction to that commentary in the media. I'd still like to know what their thought, I know they don't know, but I don't think it's a bad thing that they came out and touched base with everyone, because there's been very little personal, there's been some stuff in the media, but nothing directed at people in membership. And then we don't pay, we're not paying top dollar tickets, but what about these guys that take their whole family or do corporates and they've got $40,000, $50,000 tied up in it? They're the ones that are really going to, that money could mean a lot to someone that runs a business and so I think they do need to communicate that, even though they don't fully understand what the implications of it are. But keeping fans, and members in the loop is important.
Yeah, look, I think the timing was about right for them to put the email out as first of all, Smithers, and I think we've also having been sort of on from a work perspective, dealing with the situation in a business where we've got to figure out what does that kind of mean for our business, and figuring out what you're going to do with all your stakeholders. I suspect part of what they were focusing on was just getting their own house in order with their own people to start with, I guess. I don't think that could have been any later out with a response, which was a holding response, which is exactly the right thing to do right now. So I was quite comfortable, and I think I even said on our thread, I'm pretty sure we'll be due as members something this week, and it's come to pass. I reckon in that Paul Lewis article, I think for me it's quite inflammatory. I mean, there's absolutely no need. The Warriors will not be that silly to go, terms and conditions passed, we can keep your money now. They're not going to do. And I think what I would think they're going to do, I reckon they'll do one of three, give you the option, because they sort of outlined options. I got the impression they're going to give you options. One of which was, would you like to roll that membership over? Would you like a refund? And I suspect the third option, if it was me, is would you like to donate the membership if the club is going to be in some financial shit? I'm not sure they would come out and do that, but I suspect there'd be a small portion of people who might feel like, actually, if our club's in danger, I'm happy to pay that money. I'd be in that boat personally if the Warriors ended up being in financial challenge because they couldn't get over their play next year, etc.
Yeah.
So I'm quite comfortable with what they've done in sort of summary.
Yeah, I mean, in a way, it's a sunk cost. We paid what we paid back in sort of October time, and people who auto rolled over at the same time would have done the same thing. So, whilst I wouldn't like that money back in my pocket, of course I would. It's a case of I'm not missing it now because I was missing it 6 months ago, or whatever. But yeah, Eddie, you're right in terms of you dig yourself a hole at some point. Whether you say, hey, we'll roll it over, you pocket the money this year, then you just dig yourself a $2 million hole next year, or whatever the figure was. On that, Moorsy, sorry, my question just disappeared out of my head. Moorsy, memberships. What are your thoughts? Is this going to change how memberships might look in the future? We're reasonably innovative in terms of memberships anyway. We try and think of different packages, things like that.
Yeah, I think look, the club are going to have to be pretty careful. Look, we're pretty privileged ourselves. There'll be a lot of people who do fork out, 200 or whatever, and that's it's a lot of money. And if they're not then getting they pay for, then they're every right. And if people are losing jobs and having all that sort of stuff, then it's that sort of discretionary spend that that people will stop first, right? That's just the way it would happen. So yeah, I think look, the club have done it pretty well, I'd say. I read the email that came through. It was pretty good. Sick of the all in, but that's just a side thing, and I know a lot of fans like it. A lot of fans do, but personally, really? I can't stand it. Yeah, in terms of like future for memberships, I think the Warriors, as you said, they're pretty innovative. So it'll be interesting to see what they kind of do with this. I was talking to Jeremy, friend of the show, while back, pre-lockdown, but when things were starting to kind of ramp up, and we were talking, we wondered whether they might sort of, I don't know, chuck you maybe a shirt or something from the season, I don't know, whatever it might be, and and then but as Jono says, it's almost like a donation, but you might get something out of it, which I whatever. As say, pretty fortunate. It is a sunk cost and all that sort of stuff for me personally, but yeah, I think I'm not sure if I have a great impact. To be fair, I'm not sure we'll get different types of memberships as such because of this. Could be wrong.
You get myself a shirt from the season that was never played.
Yeah, the Bushman, whatever they call it.
The Bushwhacker shirt.
Yeah, my main point out of all that is I think everybody's going to be in a different situation. Absolutely, as you point out, Moorsy, there's going to be people that just will need that money back and will actually not be able to pay because they've lost money, and that's going to be a huge. There'll be other people that are in better positions, in luckier positions. So I think what the club should be thinking about is giving all the different types of options.
Yeah,
and so that people have got the ability to kind of go, I really need that money, or actually roll it over to next year, or whatever, so that you give people the choice rather than one or the other.
Okay, all right. I tell you what, time's getting away from us, and Jono's got a hot date at 9:00, so we can't stray on. So there's a lot of stuff here that we're just not going to get to, but we might save it. This is sort of less timely stuff. We might save it for maybe the next week or two. It's good questions here. We can talk a little bit more about players in the next couple of weeks. Out of contract players, what we do with players, and Logan had a great question that I wanted to talk about in terms of uni versus league, but we'll save that for another time. So I could go on about that for ages. So I'll tell you what, just to finish off, we'll steer away from sports a little bit, and I got a message today from someone at work saying, "Am I watching Sky?" They're like, "You watching Sky?" I was like, "No, why not?" apparently they had Warriors games on back to back all day and throughout the evening. So I wasn't pinching Jono's Sky feed to watch that, unfortunately. I'm just interested. It's been a couple of weeks. You've been on lockdown. What have you been watching? What have you been enjoying on TV? Jono, you got a smile on your face. Keep it clean, though. You know, this is.
There's two things I've been watching. I've been watching the third season on Netflix of Ozark, which was brilliant for anyone who likes basically drug cartel stuff, kind of sort of a similar to Breaking Bad. That was been brilliant. And I'm about to start Tiger King, which everybody's talking about. But as Eddie knows, I was no sport, so I was like, you know what? I've been wanting to watch some old school WWF, WWE for ages, so I signed up to WWE Network and got the kids into the Royal Rumble. So, like I was saying before the call started, we're four Royal Rumbles deep so far, and the kids love it, absolutely love it. So we're continuing to watch that, I think.
Are you anywhere near the Undertaker sort of genre era?
So, well, yes and no. So we watched the 2013 and the 2012 and 2009 ones. Undertaker was one of those because that's when my kids were born. And then we watched the maybe the 2003, and then I tell you what, 2013 and 2014. So we're making our way up to 2020.
Classic Jono, not doing them in chronological order. Moorsy's OCD head is just going, what?
Yeah, what?
12, then 9, then 30. Crazy. What are you watching, Moorsy?
So we have started watching the Star Wars films in chronological order, but not when they were made, but for the storyline. Yeah. So we've gone through episodes 1, 2, and 3, and we've just started Solo actually. So yeah, we've been watching that, and the kids have been enjoying it. Bit scared in episode 3, but we push through. They're fine. And then the other, so Tiger King, done and dusted, sorted, watched it, ticked that off. And Lego Masters. So as I mentioned a couple of weeks ago, before boring everyone, yeah, that's just an outstanding show. Oh, and 2019 baseball.
Yes, Eddie, you've been picking baseball games just from the art.
I've been using a random date picker on the web. Between the opening day and the end of the World Series, and picking a date, and then watching a Phillies game. So I've had it on in my garage while I've been out working at the weekends, and my son ended up sitting in this camp chair in the garage for a good my 6-year-old son, for a good couple of hours watching Phillies beat the Mets up in New York. So.
You should get used to that. That will happen quite frequently.
So yeah, I've been enjoying the fact that they've opened that up to all the 2019 and 2018 archives for people to watch. So
many games, you don't know the score. There's 162 games per team, so you can't remember what happened.
We won that game as well, so Ryan was happy as.
Nice.
There's quite a few providers are opening up their archives. I know you can get on Spark Sport. I know the ICC opened up their archives for all the old cricket matches as well. If you want to watch those, that's pretty good. I'm like Moorsy. I was working my way through Star Trek again, like Moorsy.
Star Trek or Star Wars?
Oh, sorry, Star Wars. Although I was thinking I might work my way through Star Trek as well. I was looking for that for some reason online. I ended up in just one of those sort of Wikipedia holes where you end up linking to this, to that, to this, to that. I've done Star Wars. I've done Solo. So I've done 1, 2, 3 and Solo. So I've got Rogue One to come. I just forgot how shit 1 and 2 were. Fucking terrible.
Oh, awful.
I mean, three. There's a couple of nice set pieces, but other than that, I mean, it's really awful. I'm looking forward to getting onto some other stuff, and I'm going to have to find something. I mean, you guys know me. I don't really watch all that much TV. But there's only so much DIY a house can handle. So I'm gonna There's not,
so much DIY your house can handle you doing.
yeah, that's what I mean. Yeah. It's like, oh my God, please
Everything.
don't try and fix me again. I've got to fix a fence this week. Anyway. Okay, thanks for that, team. Like I said, we've got loads more content in here. Thanks again for your comments. So we'll save that up, and I think we'll probably do another one of these. Certainly, if not next week, then the week after, when we're out of lockdown. I hope everyone is adhering to the rules. I hope you are staying safe, staying inside, staying local, and choosing opportune times to go to the supermarket. And don't panic buy, even though it's Easter. Please, my God, people normally panic buy at Easter, so panic buy double by panic buy. Don't need to, just at home. Thanks, team. I enjoyed that. I think last week.